I would like to, before we try to get to the chi roots, is pick up a little bit from something I mentioned last time, which there are a number of chi roots in here tonight connected to the same thing. It had to do, I was mentioning, and some of the chi roots tonight, if you notice, one old man told a kid that when it got to the idea of secret hidden knowledge, that it wasn't all that hidden, that was pretty much right out in the open. And there were 4 or 5 in here that I won't go back and dig out, but that were sort of building on one another every 10 or 15 pages that had to do with the fact they had to do with the fact that it said that men normally, if they're moving, that men are normally either going north, east, and south, and thus if anyone tries to point to the west, is most people can't really tell what you're pointing towards. And there was one that said that men normally measure themselves and each other but through height, width, and breadth. And if you tried to take any sort of fourth survey, they can't really tell what it is that you're attempting to assess. And the one that's getting real close to what we sort of ended with last night, the last time we met, was that the ordinary mind, without any doubt, and not because I say so, you can see it in yourself, it's just the physical nature of the limitations under which the human nervous system operates on this here planet, right here on Earth. That the human mind reaction, the way it thinks to any human activity, anyone's activity, is either to favor it, to condemn it, or to ignore it. And from an alternative view, we would say that a revolutionist does neither. That is, of all three, does neither. And thus it's hard to tell exactly what the revolution is talking about. At a very basic level, as we've done many times, we could say that the ordinary mind, being polar-based, it only deals with this and that, right or wrong, true and false, heads or tails. And in times past, I even tried to get you considered on the basis of like 3 forces, of a constructive and a destructive, and then sort of an irrelevant force going on at all times. So even when we talk about the mind, that it only reacts to something either in a positive or negative way, that's true. That's the only thing that people take note of, in the same way that if we were talking about forces, that people want to take into account the C and D force, like a constructive or destructive force, or like the conservative or the liberal wing of a political party. And then if you find out, well, we got people that say they're instant government, but they're neither party. That is what I was throwing in to try and get you to see in a wider way, that man's ordinary reaction, the mind's reaction to human activity, we're talking about the secondary world, local events, it is either to favor it, what they hear, what they see, what they're reacting to. They either favor it, they condemn it, or they ignore it. That is, they're not interested in it, which covers everything. There's no way out. The rest of it is that since a revolutionist does neither, which is acceptable for those of you that took a course in English, neither can apply to more than 2. But since the revolutionist does neither, in his view, in the revolutionist mind view of human activities, that whatever it was surveying, it does not favor it, does not disfavor it, and is not ignoring it, or it wouldn't be talking about it. But since it does neither, then it's real hard to tell what in the hell he's talking about, because there's nowhere to go. The words can make sense. Now, what I started to point out is that you can almost sit down, if there was secret hidden knowledge, and if somebody knew it, some great secret, you can, with a very adequate degree of safety, you could tell somebody. And it goes on. That's where we sort of left off. Now I want you to consider this. And again, it's why, for one way to look at it, that it's not to just engage us in self-reference, but it has to do with your own nervous system. For instance, the idea of secret knowledge, the idea that there is some way, and I don't mean just secret knowledge is the great old crude dream of something hidden in a book, hidden in Tibet, and etc., but that there is something actually going on, that right here in front of you. And people go, well, I could even believe that. I don't put much stock in the idea of some great secret book that they're hiding in a Buddhist monastery outside of Kathmandu. But I agree that it might be possible that there are other things going on right here in our midst, and we can't see it. Consider. You could walk into a stranger. You could be sitting at a coffee shop. Let's go back to that one. And a stranger sit down. And let's say that you knew some sort of secret. That you knew what was going on in life. You can safely tell people. And would you run a parallel notation of this right quick? Ordinary people can non-purposefully, accidentally, if you want, can relay extraordinary information to one another without knowing it in complete safety. Such as what I started to say. So take your choice. You'll run this as a dual, as a parallel track that ordinary people do it to one another. As I think you'll see in a minute, it's not this strange when I finally say it. But let's say that a man sits down who knows a secret, who knows these secrets of life, and he just finds himself sitting next to someone, a stranger, at a coffee counter, and they fall into conversation. And the stranger, the ordinary person, begins to, just anything, just kind of things that people will talk about. Maybe he begins to register a certain kind of complaint, let us say, with his brother-in-law. He just got from the hospital, his sister's been sick, and his brother-in-law borrowed money a while back to pay for some of her hospital bills. And this man's talking, and he said, I'm not rich, you can look at me. I lent him the money. He swore he's been working 2 jobs. I know he's not broke, and he has yet to pay me that money back. I mean, sure, I wanted to help my own sister, but, the man just, I trusted him. I gave money. He's like almost my own family, so he's talking about such as this. And then he stops to stir his coffee or something. And let us say that you're the man knowing the secret, and you're still trying to finish your food, and you're carrying on the conversation. You can turn to the man and make some comment, and now take the parallel track. Ordinary people do this to one another. But you could turn to the man, if you were the ones that you actually knew a secret, take your choice, either that or picture the ordinary people do it. You can turn to the man and make some comment that is beyond either condemning, favoring, or ignoring what he pointed out was part of just human nature. As you can say something like, well, I know what you mean, but the truth is, it seems like that there are circumstances happen in a man's life, the best intentioned of people, that will make them do things that even they condemn, even that they disapprove of, and they can't help themselves. Do you understand that is, you've all heard it before. It doesn't sound like any great secret. But that is extraordinary in the sense it does not condemn, it does not favor, but it doesn't ignore. And the other guy is going to be left with what, to pick up again from last time, but now maybe you're hearing it in a different way. You can say that to the guy, and the guy will go, and almost agree, well, you could be right, but, I've got to go. It's been nice chatting with you. And in a sense, you have, and I don't mean in a sense in a cavalier, figurative manner, you have in a real sense conveyed extraordinary information, even if it was 2 people, 2 ordinary people, which it doesn't mean any more, much less, any less than if it was you, somebody knew a secret. But ordinary people do this to one another. That what institutionally speaking, what the collective have always believed, no matter how they define it, that they believe that there is something other than this life, that there is something other than what ordinary people know and say. And of course the religious people have their own ideas and philosophers have their own, but the point is that they're saying life is not just what we see. You can be religious or not, and all thinking, civilized people inside the collective support that. They can, within themselves, pass along information that belies all of that, that goes beyond all of the confines. They can approach that to each other. Back to my example of what, just a little conversation I made up. But just imagine it's just two ordinary people. Neither one of them are involved with anything extraordinary. Do you understand that one of them has conveyed the reality of what they dream about, of being extraordinary, hidden information? One of them has just done it to the other one. That he commented, he observed, he reacted to ordinary occurrences in human affairs. That is, the guy's story about how his best friend, his brother-in-law, his mother, just anything, make up your own example, did something that is just inexplicable. That it's the kind of thing that almost makes you sick of living. And the other guy goes, well, I know exactly what you mean. And yet, another guy says about what I did, he says, yeah, I know the same thing. It's happened to me. But the truth is, I don't know you or your brother-in-law, but it just seems like in life that things just will pop up on a man, the best intentions of a man, and will force him to do things that even he will admit he just despised. He had no intention of doing it. Do you understand? I mean, it's so common, it's just trite almost. But do you understand that is extraordinary? But here's the double extraordinary part. If you do say it's extraordinary, and you've all heard it, that's no kind of great secret. People do that. Just two semi-literate, ordinary people sitting there do that. But the conversation, the last part that the man conveyed is absolutely extraordinary. It makes all ideas of hidden knowledge, it's nothing. But the double extraordinary part is the other guy that hears it goes, yeah. Well, it's been nice talking to you. I'm going to have to go. Again, it's not just based on self-reference, but try to give you some idea, some of you maybe a more feeling of orientation of where this has always fit into life. We're getting more and more people contacting us here, written and otherwise, saying, I've seen your show all across the country. People say, well, I've seen that show, and they will say, and I'm accepting it in the best humor, that they'll say, hey, I've seen the show. My wife, we've seen it a lot of times. Exactly what is it? Well, sometimes, they'll even say, we really enjoy it. And they'll pause, and now I can write it out. And they'll go, what is it? And when I said good-natured, what I meant was, I'm conveying something to you. It's not an attack. As they say, we watched it, and what is it? All right. One last time for you people out there on TV, this really has nothing to do with me, the show, or you. It's the nature of the human nervous system. But, what's pointed out tonight, if you're not going to talk about man, what are you going to talk about? From a certain view, you could take people who hear any of this from whatever source and think, well, that's just absolutely extraordinary. And then people even think, well, it's extraordinary, but I'm not sure what it means. And then there are others that think, gee, this is extraordinary, and it's so extraordinary, how come other people don't know about it? Why don't people think about it? And that's what I'm trying to get you to consider. It's extraordinary, but it's a safe extraordinariness. Now, unsafe extraordinariness is super safe. And people notice it. Such as if this show was entitled The Kairoot Show Directly from Venus. We tried to claim that all of us were from another planet, or that I am, or just something like that. Just ordinary stuff that you find in a supermarket journal. I'm Elvis. With a certain amount of hormonal difficulties, which I plan to overcome shortly as soon as my spaceship returns from Pluto. All right. People wouldn't come up and ask then, hey, I've seen your show, what's it about? Literally. And in case you think that's too strange, now I know I tried to make it silly. You don't have to be that silly. You can say, this is the Kairoot Show, a New Age version of Catholicism. or just say this is the Kairoot Said Show, an insider's look at Islam or the democratic process. Anything like that, in a sense that has no meaning to it. It's not going anywhere extraordinary. People go on, and nobody would ever stop any of us and say, "What's the show about?" But conversely, if you jumped into their head and said, "Hey, you seen that show?" and they go, "Yeah, what's it about?" They still don't know, but they don't wonder about not knowing. Well, they could even say, "Well, it's some kind of crackpot," which is fine. But if it gets into something that is beyond crackpot, it's past the point of being crackpot, that you say, "I like that, but what is it?" There is the safety. There is life stabilizing itself. And now the whole idea that there is something secret going on in life is so delicious, and that this didn't start as some kind of expose. It's not to shake people and say, "By God, wake up, you New Age people, or you people who dream of mystical journeys and stuff, snap out of it. Pull yourselves together." Oh, come on. Jesus. Everybody needs a hobby. Yes. Not to disillusion such people, because there is no illusion to be dished. But then on the other, as you try and consider, well, if this is so extraordinary as it strikes me at times, now I think, well, it's not all that extraordinary. Consider the example. I thought surely that'd wrap it up for you. It's the whole basis of truisms, with no sarcasm, but all maxims, all truisms, all proverbs. There's one reason Kairoot digs some of them up and redoes them. Many are called, and he puts a certain twist on it. It's not to make fun of it, because that is the secret information in all societies, all cultures. What is the basis? The people then will say, well, some of these truisms are things in our holy book, here in our Quran or our Bible. It has allegorical meaning, yeah. But the basis of the truisms, whatever it is, that God is love, or as you reap, so shall you sow, or as you sow, shall you reap. And people go, oh, yeah. And they keep waiting, what's some secret information? There is the goddamn secret information. Everybody knows it. Your Aunt Clara knows it. Your great-great-great-grandmother Clara knew it. No, there's more to it than that. Nuh-uh. That's why it's a truism. That's why it is a proverb. That is why it is a epitaph. That is why it has been remembered. That is why it's been cherished. People don't know why. I mean, they say they do. They say it's because it's a great truth. And you go, well. And if you made them go along, they say, well, it's a great truth, but that's not all, because it's allegorical, it's metaphorical, and there's something else. You see the safety. What else? The thing told you the truth. But of course, you got to get past however culturally, however collectively you've taken it, that as you sow, so shall you reap, or that God is love. There it is. Or my guy sitting at the coffee counter saying, well, even the people best intentioned will do things due to circumstances that even they condemn. You can say, well, by God, that's heavy. What's the significance behind that? What the hell do you want? And of course, there's this, the safety, as I said, that you can safely, if there is such a thing, we can call it that, as great hidden truth. You can safely convey it. People who don't know they're doing it can safely convey it to other people that don't know it. And they just go, well, yeah. Good night.